Now, there's a showdown over the $15 billion National Reconstruction Fund. The Coalition has ruled out supporting the fund, and Industry Minister Ed Husic is warning they're putting national security at risk and restricting investment in critical technologies pledged under the AUKUS agreement.
When the Coalition announced support for manufacturing, we backed it in. We think manufacturing matters to this country. The Coalition in opposition, when they have a massive chance to back in one of the biggest investments in manufacturing, played politics, said no, and this goes and speaks volumes that the Liberals and the Nationals would work with the Greens to undermine support in manufacturing.
Joining me now is Queensland Nationals MP Keith Pitt. Keith, are the Coalition putting national security at risk?
Ed Husic can't be serious. I mean, what he's proposing is effectively, and you would have seen the papers today, I'm sure, Rita, the ACTU, well, they want in, they want to make the decisions on that fund, and the idea that a top secret agreement like AUKUS would be dealt with through that body, and there's no other way. I mean, this stuff is already in place. Even in the portfolios I held for critical minerals, there was a $2 billion loan facility set up through Export Finance Australia. That's already there. There was a $250 million announcement on critical minerals, 200 in grants and 50 for further work through universities. Well, Labor cut some of that. Now they want to add that into the pool. It's just a political game by Mr Husic, and he was in the parliament today banging on about cosplay and high-vis vests. Well, I can guarantee you I was wearing high-vis a lot longer than he was. I actually come off the tools, that do a number of people on our side of politics. Mine's got holes in them from, arc flash and splash and grease and everything else. I don't think Mr Husic has.
Well, what do you make of the government's sudden focus here on quantum technology and artificial intelligence?
Well, firstly, I noticed that Mr Husic couldn't actually explain that when he was asked by Laura Jays this morning, what is quantum computing? So he sort of sidestepped that one. It's incredibly important, and Australia is one of the world leaders in its development. That's why it was supported by us as the previous government. These things were all in place. They were budgeted. There was money for it. What we're seeing now is Labor wants to put it into a big pool. The ACTU wants in. They don't want independent directors. And I just think that's a bad outcome all round. I want to see the specialists in these areas be the ones that are providing that advice and looking after the budget, and they're in the public service.
Now, a sneaky move by the government when it comes to caring for older Australians. They've slashed support for the home care scheme. It's aimed at keeping people living in their own homes and out of aged care. More than 200,000 elderly Australians are going to be impacted by this. They'll now have to fork out thousands for things like medication and mobility scooters. Keith, when Aged Care Minister Anika Wells announced the new program replacing home care packages, she promised no services would be cut. Have they kept that promise?
Well, it doesn't appear that way. If this report's accurate, they're making life harder for people who are trying to stay at home in their senior years, not easier. They're already struggling with massive increases in their power bills, their gas bills in places, cost of living is up, and now this. As you've said, this is a pretty sneaky cut to a budget, but it's nowhere near what they did to hospital funding. According to the AMA, they cut $2.4 billion from hospital funding over the forwards in the budget last year. That sank like a brick and tile glider, mate. No one's seen any sign of that, and yet we're still seeing federal Labor banging on about Medicare and how they'll make things better. Well, if you're taking away hospital funding, it ain't getting better.
Now, before I let you go, we know a lot of major regional roads have been severely damaged by floods over the past couple of years. And I know you and a number of other Queensland MPs are voicing your frustrations about just the road repairs, how slow it's going, and you've got state and federal governments fighting. Are regional areas being forgotten again?
Well, in Queensland, you've got a state Labor government that's just completely incompetent. We'd come here, fight for funding, get it delivered, announced and ready, and it would take years before Queensland would get things underway. I look at what Lou O'Brien's done on the Tyro bypass. There's a patch there at Chinaman's Creek. Every time it floods, the Bruce Highway gets cut. That money was put up by the Commonwealth ready to go. They still haven't started. No matter delivered it. The bypass around Gympie is finally getting some traction and getting moving. And for me, I got money in the regional deal in 2018 for what's known as the Buxton intersection on the Bruce Highway. It's pretty important to the people of Buxton, $10 million, but no sign of any start whatsoever. So, Rita, I'm not sure how much travelling you do in Queensland, but if you can't travel on the Bruce, you're not getting too many places.